It is women who are vehemently shamed because it's not ladylike. Says who?
You know, poo is actually medically a really important marker for health.
Why can't I poo when I go on holiday?
It had been 2 weeks. I lost a stone of poo.
Every single person poos and we really need to get over it.
Before we get started, if I could just ask you a very quick favour, wherever you're watching or listening, if you could press follow or subscribe, that would be amazing. It makes a huge difference and will really help me get the message out to more women who really need it. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Too Much Information. Today we are talking all about the topic that everyone secretly, or not so secretly, loves to talk about, which is poo. Here to shed some light on the real reason you're bloated or constipated and what you can do about it. We have got one expert who knows it and two women who have lived it. So we're going to start today by introducing our expert, Laura Jennings, a registered nutritionist and actually dialing in today all the way from Melbourne, Australia. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Issy. Thanks so much for having me. So, yes, I'm a registered associate nutritionist and I have a clinic out here in Melbourne. So I am practicing. And I also run a evidence-based communications agency. So instead of brands and kind of magazines getting that information from, I guess, TikTok and Instagram, they get it from an expert. My specialisms are gut health, weight management, longevity, and also nutritional psychiatry. So looking at how food and lifestyle factors influence our mental health. And I'm also an academic researcher as well. So I've got a few research papers published.
That is amazing. We are in good hands then. And then two women who are quite literally on a mission to help you poo better, Holly and Jolie. How are we, guys?
Hi.
Hello.
Very happy to be here. Very excited.
So excited to have you both. So Holly and Jolie have very recently founded We Are Regular, swapping the world of beauty for the world of bowel and bloat relief, amongst other things, which is an interesting shift. I would love to know what you both did before you started We Are Regular.
Yeah, for sure. So I've pretty much spent my whole career in helping founders build brands, helping creators build brands. I've always worked in startups. I've always worked with founders. And I spent most recently the last 5 years working alongside Caroline Hirons as her commercial director, building Skimrock's app, the Caroline Hirons universe, which is huge. So yeah, an amazing experience, but yeah, very different world where we are now.
And what about you, Jolie?
I spent the last 13 years in magazines up until June this year when I decided to leave and obviously just pursue solely We Are Regular with Halls. I was Elle and then Grazia and then Elle and then Grazia. And then most recently as head of beauty at Grazia. No 2 days were the same because there's lots of things going on, which I always loved about the job and I think is definitely proving to be the same on this side of things as well. You get thrown a different curveball every day, which is fun.
Holly and Jolie, do you think that there are any parallels or overlaps between the worlds of beauty and the world of great poos?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's overlap, especially with We Are Regular, because we are predominantly speaking to women. And that's why I've done my whole career in female magazines with like a predominantly female audience. So we're just speaking to women when we know how to do that because we've lived that for our whole careers. And also we are women. And I think why it came very easily to us in the storytelling was because we are essentially building a brand for ourselves.
I mean, we've been building the brand for over 2 years now.
Wow.
I've lost track. But when we were talking about how we would shape, I guess, the vision for the brand, because in my opinion, the supplement space can often feel quite clinical. And so we really, really wanted to bring the beauty side into the supplement space. And I hope we've done a good job at doing that. I think that the beauty industry is incredibly underestimated in terms of the money that it brings into the economy and the power of beauty. You know, it isn't just a fluffy space.
No.
It literally changes people's lives in terms of confidence and everything else. And super proud of the beauty industry. Just really wanted to kind of champion that but in a different medium, I guess.
And what I love about your brand that you're building is that it is obviously one that is geared towards women, but it's also redefining this previously taboo topic of poo just in how it appears. Like, these things are, I've got one here, but now I can't open your packaging.
Convenient.
Come on.
I love it.
So, like, that's quite a beautiful thing, isn't it?
She's a sexy stick.
She's a sexy stick. And I feel like we've seen this from tampons a bit as well. And like toilet roll. You get these companies that take something very mundane that you'd want to hide away and turn it into almost an accessory. But importantly, I know how passionate you guys have been about having the science and having the evidence and having the right people in the room. And that's why it's so important that we're here today with Laura, your head of nutrition.
Yes, and Laura, you're amazing.
I've spoken to so many nutritionists in my quest to have better bowels, and so many experts. And what I just love and really resonated with Joe and I was just the way that Laura delivers the information. It's just relatable. It's not selling and promising you the dream, but it's telling you the facts. And we really love that.
Thanks, guys.
So much love in the room, guys. I love
So
it.
much love. I feel inspired already. I would love to start with a very quick icebreaker. For all of us, I'm sure there will be a time in our lives where we have struggled to go to the loo. For me, it's always been just not going for multiple days. And then when you do go, you get like the hard droppings and it's just really unsatisfying. So what is the strangest thing that you have tried to make yourself poo?
Great question.
Oh, wow.
Oh, the strangest thing. I mean, that, having a water hose up your bum is not like your everyday occurrence.
No, that's true.
Like a colonic will definitely move it out of you. So maybe that. And I had to not only have a colonic, but write about it for Elle magazine.
Oh my God.
And I was young as well.
Oh.
I would just do anything to be in the mag rather than just like the short, captions. So I was like, I'll do it. And that was my first colonic. Your first colonic is always an experience, let's say.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially when Donnie, my boyfriend, insisted on coming with me for my first ever one. I mean, my only one. He was just intrigued. We'd barely been together that long. So yeah, that was pretty strange. I remember one time I took laxatives stupidly before a first date years ago. And I literally had to leave the date because I just got in a cab. I didn't even explain. I just ran.
As we're on the topic of colonics, I feel like a lot of people will be thinking like, is this a good, I guess, quick fix if you are kind of backed up and constipated? And I think both of you kind of came out and felt incredible and amazing. And I think you described yourself as feeling like lighter, and you can absolutely feel all those things. But I would say if you're looking for a long-term fix, it's not really getting to that underlying cause. And with colonics, it's kind of the same as what people say about antibiotics. It actually wipes out the good bacteria as well as the bad. So it can actually leave you, I guess, in a worse state sometimes than when you went in. So just something to keep in mind.
Laura, have you ever had a mishap with trying to make yourself poo?
So I would say actually no, but I'm constantly trying weird things. Like if you come to my house, I just have jars of like ferments and like weird things. I had a client the other day give me a starter culture. That's the sort of gifts that I get being a nutritionist, but I trust the anecdotes of these two. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I think these two are the experts when it comes to the real experience.
Yeah, I've tried an enema before. That was weird. Well, it was just an at-home one, so you do it yourself, but you just literally shoot something up your bum. But to be honest with you, it didn't work. And I think this was at a point where I was honestly so backed up. Like there was times where I wouldn't go 10 days, 2 weeks.
Oh.
One time I weighed myself before and after, just purely out of interest to see how much poo there was, because it had been 2 weeks. I lost a stone of poo.
Oh my goodness.
Like a full stone. I could not believe it.
Wow. Oh, thank you guys. Very insightful. So Laura, this is your time to shine. I've got a few questions all about bowel health and poo.
Amazing. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, first one, very important. What counts as a good, healthy poo?
So I would say to this, obviously, if people are familiar with the Bristol stool chart, you're looking for types 3 and 4, I would say. So if you were going to compare it to a shape, it would be kind of sausage shape, quite firm, but then easy to pass. So no training involved. Color wise, obviously like light to dark brown. If you've got any other colors, like, sometimes you can have blood and different things, then that's something can signify a different issue.
And on that topic, when should somebody go to the doctor about their poo?
Yeah, so, poo is actually medically, it gives us signs for how our general health is. So if you're getting those kind of rabbit droppings, there can be, an actually underlying gut issue going on. It can indicate a lack of fiber, dehydration. And then if you've got yellow stools, anything like that, and they're kind of liquid, that would indicate in some cases potentially a parasite or something like that. And then if you've got, blood or any kind of other colors, it can indicate obviously bowel disease or pancreatic issues and things like that. So it is really important to actually check your stools as a marker of your general health.
Interesting. So should we be checking our poos as much as we check our breasts, or, look for blood in our spit when we brush our teeth?
Yeah, definitely. I would say weekly, you should just be checking it. And I think as well, you kind of know, you can feel if you've got a normal pattern as well. So I would say just be in tune with what's going on as much as possible.
That makes sense. So going back to the normal healthy poo, how often is it right or normal to be going to the loo?
Yeah, so this is a question I get asked probably every week. And I would say there is no normal. What's normal for you would be very different to somebody else. Don't panic if you hear someone going, say, 3 times a day and you only go 4 times a week. Everyone's kind of got a different average. But what I would say is if you're going less than 3 times a week, that often signifies constipation. And if you're straining to pass, that would kind of move you more into that constipation territory.
What about bloating? What actually causes bloating?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Unfortunately, women are more prone to bloating than men. Even disorders like IBS, we're twice as likely to get diagnosed compared to men. And it has been linked to stress. And I do think the modern society and world has changed, but we are still expected to kind of keep domestic roles and have an amazing career and all these different things. And I do see a lot of women kind of in clinic presenting with gut issues that are mostly related to stress. And also, obviously, we have a cycle. So, estrogen is so protective of inflammation, and around our cycle, we see that drop in progesterone and estrogen. So we've got less inflammatory protective mechanisms happening, which is why we see bloating and fluid retention as well.
I'd say the number one question that I've had, well, actually, let's go into it now. The number one question that I've probably had on this topic has been, why, when I get my period, does everything go a bit weird? And Holly, Jolie, do you guys experience this? Because I know that I know that my period's coming because I won't poo for a few days.
Yeah, for sure. And I think to emphasize the uniqueness, to Laura's point around, everybody's normal is their own normal and different and everything else. Joe and I have such different experiences when we're on our period. I get more constipated. I just completely block up on my period. But Joe,
I can't stop. I've just never been a consistent pooer. Bouts of absolute constipation, didn't poo for 2 weeks. And then it can change. I think very much mine is to do with hormones, in pregnancy all over the shop. Definitely pregnancy versus postpartum. But yeah, when I'm on my period poos, and they just fly out. They fly out the door. So if I was in a company in a restaurant, no one would be thinking anything, although I probably would declare it. You're either one side or the other, I feel.
So why is that, Laura?
So I can talk to both, and it might be because your hormones are essentially higher at different points. So if you're constipated, progesterone is the predominantly higher hormone, and that is usually highest at the start of our cycle. And that's when we see things get a little more backed up. And if you're going too much, that's usually due to prostaglandins, which are what help the uterus essentially shed its lining. But with prostaglandins, what you're also getting is those kind of muscular contractions, which essentially stimulate the muscles of the gut simultaneously. So that's why people are either to, one side of the coin. And that's either because their prostaglandins are much higher, or they've got a higher, progesterone at the start of their cycle. And it sounds like, Holly, you might be, higher progesterone than prostaglandins.
Lovely. A question on that, Laura. Like endometriosis and PCOS, would things like that interplay? So when I had a surgery and I got told I had endometriosis, and would that play into the fact that I am pooing all the time on my period or not?
It's difficult to say. One thing I do think with those conditions, I also have PCOS, I do think they are more gut related issues than hormone related issues. Actually, the imbalances in hormones, I think, are related to imbalances in the gut.
Yeah, I'd love to. I haven't done a gut test really since I've been regular, but one of the things that came up before I became regular was my estrogen was so high, and she was like, that's possibly because you're constipated, because you're not you're recycling your hormones and they're not actually leaving when they should be. I'd love to do a test again just to understand if now that I am regular, like how much else has shifted.
Yeah, and it's actually, so what you're describing there, it's called intrahepatic circulation, and it's essentially where you have an imbalance in gut bacteria. And what I mean by an imbalance, just to explain it, is where there's more helpful, harmful bacteria in ratio to beneficial bacteria, and you'll have a slightly lower diversity of that bacteria. But what happens is the liver kind of metabolizes hormones, and unfortunately there's certain gut bacteria which they have a name. Let me see if I can remember it.
You got
it. It's called a name, and they release enzymes which cause the gut bacteria reactivate certain hormones like estrogen, essentially. So that's why we see in certain conditions like PCOS, it's associated with higher androgens, higher levels of certain hormones, because of exactly what you've described, that kind of recycling of hormones.
Love it. Obviously, gut health is so connected to women's health, and we've also touched on the mind-gut connection.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. So that kind of two-way communication pathway between the gut and the brain is very real. And that's actually been what a lot of my research has kind of focused around, is that link between the gut and the brain, and vice versa. So if we have kind of disrupted brain chemistry, that can also influence kind of how we digest our food, how we process it, etc.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Laura. We're going to end this section with a little bit of a fact or fad. Okay, so the first one is fiber maxing.
Fad.
I would say it's a fact, but do it slowly. Currently, we are in a fiber deficiency, not a protein deficiency, a fiber deficiency, we believe. But don't do it. Don't go from 0 to 100, because you will get constipated and backed up.
But isn't that a fad then, Laura? Because that's what it is. It's like literally overhaul overnight.
So if there's no caveats allowed, then yeah, it's a fad.
Okay. We were right, Hol. We were right.
Well done, girls. Well done, girls. So eat more fiber, do it slowly, drink lots of water, but eat more fiber. Is that
exactly
where we're going? Okay, cool. Great. Thank you very much. Fart walks. Now, I know that you girls have spoken at length about the beloved Celia Imrie, and thank God for people like her farting on national television.
Obsessed.
We love to see it. I love a fart. But you know those people who are like, I would never fart in front of my partner? I'm like,
I fart a lot.
It's just not good to hold it in. So
no, it's terrible.
Let it out.
Especially a fart walk after dinner. That's where it really comes into its own.
Oh, I've never done the after dinner fart walk.
That's what the fart walk is. So you have your dinner, and I think it's about 10 minutes after dinner. You have to walk the farts off, and it's good for your gas and good for your digestion, is what I would say. Fact.
Yeah, so I would say that's fact.
I think fart walks are underestimated in their power, because I must be honest, right? I think farting, when you are either in the room with someone, or you're maybe just in an environment that you don't necessarily feel completely free to relax, is like such a waste of a fart. So get
so
out
true.
there and go for a walk, because it's way more liberating, because you can just let it out.
But also, I will say, when you have a child, is you can blame anything on a baby.
Oh my God, that's
Oh, no, but-
brilliant.
Any smell. And you're like, oh, you could even be like, oh, I'll just check. And you're like, it was actually me.
Sorry, Laura, what's the truth?
So yeah, so it's all true. Like, I think, like Jolie said, like, it's so impactful, you know, great for our digestion, and also gut motility is actually moving food through the digestive system, and one of the best methods for reducing blood sugar as well. So if you are someone that has diabetes or pre-diabetes, it's one of the best things you can do to also reverse your blood sugar score. And if you want to also fart as well, then that's also an added bonus too. But walking after meals is incredible for your health. Yeah.
That's amazing. All right, girls, shall we get into your stories? Why did you decide to start a poo supplement brand?
Why not? No.
Why bloody not?
Why? No one else was doing it. I had chronic constipation since as long as I can remember, like even in my teenage years. So, you know, we're talking almost 2 decades. And so whilst I didn't necessarily realize it at the time, every kind of point has been leading up to us deciding to do this, because it's been years, decades of research, of trying everything, of speaking to experts, of spending too much money, of being insistent on not being told that like this was my normal, and that you just kind of had to go, oh, you got IBS. Tried every diet, everything else, and then just finally, I guess over time, just saying like enough is enough. And I found a solution selfishly for myself, as you would. And I kind of realized that I was discovered this concoction of supplements, 30 different supplements I was taking a day. Wow. Which all of the ingredients that I was taking then is exactly what's in Bowel and Bloat Relief by We Are Regular. And then it was just like this very much aha moment where Joe and I were at a friend's lunch. I was there, I had my pill box, which now actually I was thinking about this, I won't ever throw my pill box out, because it kind of really reminds me of like this. I think it's somewhere.
It's how it started.
A little memory box.
Yeah.
Put it in the memory box.
Yeah, like and I had all these little compartments, and I wrote all like the things so I knew what was what, because obviously you have taken 30 supplements, they all look the same. And yeah, I opened it and Jay was like, what are you doing? Like, and I was like, well, I'm finally regular. Like I'm pooing once a day, and it was life changing. And I was like, it's costing me a fortune, but it's just so worth it. And Joe just so naturally just went, we need to make this a brand. We need to call it Regular, and it needs to not cost the earth. And that was how it was born. And it was just a really natural kind of evolution from there. It wasn't like a strategic, we didn't sit down, all right, let's brainstorm some ideas of how we can. It just felt so natural, like with everything else that we'd kind of been through and experienced. And the fact it was the two of us, you know, we've known each other 20 years. We met in a nightclub in Leeds.
Love it.
We shouldn't admit that because we were underage. And yeah, we've known it. We've been to uni together. We're from the same place at home. You know, we've been mates forever. So it just, felt right. Trusted our gut.
We did indeed.
Literally. And Holly, I know we've touched on your experiences of constipation, but can you just go into a bit of detail on actually what that was like for you? Like, how did it feel? What were you physically experiencing? But also, how was it affecting your mental health as well? Because I know that the two go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah, massively. And I think obviously, you know, in life, everything is better with hindsight. And I think this is a massive reason as to why we started this brand, is because I don't think I fully appreciated how much it was impacting me until after the fact. And then once I kind of had got myself to be more regular, now bearing in mind that took me 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of my life. Yeah. Literally half of my life. I wasn't particularly bloated. It wasn't presenting physically on me. It would go in bouts. I would have the confidence to talk about it because it would become so much of a problem. Quite like a lot of other health problems, I guess, that we face into that are kind of like underlying and don't necessarily pose themselves as like huge issues in your day to day. But you'd have moments where I'd just get either like super backed up or feel really constipated or just be feeling really low mood or really low energy. And then I'd be proactive about it. And then I'd see someone, I'd see a GP, I'd see a specialist, and I wouldn't necessarily get the answer that I wanted. Or they'd go, right, well, you kind of obviously tried these, so let's try this. One time I was prescribed like really low dose antidepressants, which I have never been on antidepressants, and at the time very much was not feeling that I needed them. But his argument, the doctor's specialist argument, was that if you take these, there is science supposedly that it resets your gut. But that to me was like, that was the step too far, because I felt really happy, like by the most, do you know what I mean? I know I've experienced depression. I know what it feels like, but I just knew in that moment that wasn't what it was. And so I think I just kept banging the door all the time, which is frustrating. And again, like I think again on reflection since going through this journey and now being on the other side of it, I think I really underestimated how much it was impacting my mental health. My energy was rubbish. I had really bad brain fog, but it was just something that, yeah, now on reflection, I have so much more mental clarity and I'm a lot more consistent in my moods. Like I'm a more level than maybe I was prior when I was really constipated. So it's like a whole host of different factors, but now being on the other side of it, like I just can't stress how much clearer and lighter and energized, and just has such a huge knock-on impact on so much of your life. And I suppose the reality is, like, you know, it's something that everybody does. Everybody poos. I don't think it's something that gets enough until now airtime. And I think only when you are someone who has been constipated and has experienced it do you truly understand. And we've really seen that in how our customers have kind of reacted to the product. Because if you are someone experienced chronic constipation, which is what I had, then the feeling on the others when you go the other side and you become more regular is like priceless. I mean, I was spending so much money because I was so desperate to feel the way I felt. When it comes to your health and you're experiencing something that impacts, like, you will do whatever it takes to maintain that feeling. Because for me, I think your health is the most important thing that you have. You should never ever take it for granted, and it is the most important thing that you should nurture, whatever that looks like for you. So being able to kind of have a really healthy relationship with your gut finally is just lovely
and life-changing.
Yeah, honestly, I can't say how often we get messages. I mean, all you need to do is go onto our website and go on our product page and read our testimonials. Like, life-changing is in there so many times. I have this one customer, and I'm gonna send this episode to her because I just want her to know like how much we talk about her, because she'd been constipated 30 years and she finally had tried our product. We were in the Times and she'd read the interview, and she was, I'm just going to give it a go because I've tried everything else. And she was in her 60s and she'd been widowed 7 years prior, Roger. And she'd wrote us this such heartfelt email just saying, like, you guys have literally changed my life. I never had the confidence to even consider dating again. And now that I'm finally regular, I can imagine myself getting back out there. And when you're just like,
that's so sweet.
We didn't know it was going to have this much of an impact. Like, genuinely just thought we were getting people, more regular. But it's such an underestimated area of health that people are dealing with on the daily. She literally was like, please don't ever stop making this product.
So that is just so, it's heartwarming, but it also just shows that anyone who like belittles any issues to do with your digestive system, or you just feeling a bit bloated or just being a bit backed up, like it's so much more than that, isn't it?
People that come into the clinic as well, they are so shy to talk about it. It happens in both kind of men and women, and usually we'll get kind of 30 minutes into the consultation and they'll skirt around the issue before we actually get to the crux of the problem, which is usually something like constipation or loose bowel movements. And as Holly said, it's something we do every day, but it's one of the most kind of taboo topics still.
Mad, absolutely mad. Like, everyone poos and yet we're still nervous to talk about it or embarrassed to talk about it.
And unfortunately, we're living in kind of like a high stress, sedentary world where kind of stress, alcohol, ultra processed foods, they're so prevalent. They're the kind of main what we call skewers of the gut microbiome. So I would say like most people's issues of like low energy, as Holly was saying, brain fog, low mood. So they might not necessarily come in presenting and saying like, this is my actual issue, but those other things stemming from poor gut health.
It makes so much sense. I mean, I feel like it would be amiss for us not to talk about alcohol as well, because pretty sure everyone here has experienced something strange happening after a night out if they do drink alcohol. Yeah. Again, a little bit like periods, like it kind of seems to go both ways in my experience.
Yeah.
What's happening in those situations, Laura? And what can we do about it? Is alcohol just a really bad idea if you're prone to any of these issues?
So yes, I would say if you have a sensitive gut, then you already have probably less of those beneficial gut microbes. And alcohol is obviously like also like wiping them out. What I would say is when I'm talking about alcohol, I'm talking about kind of chronic long-term use of alcohol. I'm not referring to people that kind of, go to a Christmas party or go for a few, work drinks on a Friday or something like that. The kind of skewed gut habits we see are typically in people who are in their kind of 50s and 60s, where they've been drinking for their whole life and it started to catch up with them, because eventually what happens is it erodes that gut lining. And we start to see kind of more inflammation as well. So you've often probably heard the term leaky gut. That term's just like flying around. And essentially, we have a gut lining, and then when there is that imbalance and dysbiosis in the gut, where we have, more harmful bacteria, we start to see that gut lining becoming more permeable. And this is where bacteria and kind of pathogens can actually enter the bloodstream. And that's what causes inflammation, which relates to kind of things like low mood, brain fog, etc. It's those pathogens and bacteria that are passing into the bloodstream. Alcohol, ultra processed foods, antibiotics, hand sanitizers as well, anything that also kills off that good bacteria. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, I guess, related to alcohol. There's a whole host of other factors as well, but alcohol does kind of wipe out that good and also cause us to reach for, as everyone can experience on a hangover, kind of less nutritious foods, those kind of high fat, ultra processed foods, which again kind of trigger that cycle.
Yeah. So what should we be doing instead?
Yeah. And it's funny because there was actually a study done recently, and I talk to clients a lot about this. And I have to say, as a practitioner, I feel quite blocked in this scenario, because I feel like, alcohol is such like a part of our social environment. It's how, we celebrate. It's how we congratulate people, all of those things. And there was a study done, and it actually showed that people who tried to abstain from alcoholic drinks had higher cortisol levels. So, sometimes you go on a night out and you think, okay, I'm not going to drink, I'm going to be, good or whatever. Apparently women in particular, their cortisol levels were higher after trying to abstain. So I think, just being, I always say to people, mindful about the amount that they're consuming as well. And also from a sleep perspective, which is another big kind of skewer of the gut. So if we're drinking alcohol, we can't enter those deeper stages of, sleep, the emotional processing essentially. So we're more inclined to have, bad mood and all those factors that interlink.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on a bit of a sober curious journey because I am trying to have a baby, and I feel like it makes me feel more anxious. It definitely wrecks my sleep. So I'm really cutting down reluctantly often, but just one little glass of wine on a Friday night at the end of a long week. Like it is a nice release, isn't it? It's a relief as well. So
the only thing I would say, fun fact, that was apparently released from Whoop at the beginning of this year or end of last year was don't drink and exercise on the same day, because it impacts your inflammatory scores. So you got to pick one or the other. So if you're exercising, do that, but don't drink and exercise on the same day.
Love that.
I love that. All or nothing.
These are the facts we just love to hear, Laura. Also, I must add as well, when it comes to alcohol, Laura taught us about eggs and the power of having eggs when you are hungover.
Do you remember why? Yeah.
Go on, Holly.
There's a chemical in the eggs, but I'm going to really can't remember what the chemical was. I was recommended to take NAC, and I think, did we discover that the chemical in that is the same? NAC is what was recommended to me by a nutritionist, because I get absolutely, I don't drink as much anymore, but like raging hangovers, like really bad. And I was someone who up until 25, literally could bounce back with it and never got hangovers. And I must have jinxed myself. And then they just hit me like a ton of bricks when I turned 25. And I saw a nutritionist and said, you need to start taking NAC. And I cannot tell you how much it shifted. And yeah, it really helped. And I think the same chemical is what's in eggs. So Laura always says you should have eggs on a hangover, or also before you go out.
Yeah, so it has a compound called cysteine, which, as Holly said, counteracts the toxic byproducts of alcohol, essentially.
This is very useful information. Thank you.
Get yourself a hangover omelette. Why not? And just a question, Laura. Does it matter what order you do it? Or is it just don't do both in the same day?
I think it's just don't do both in the same day. And the reason being, if you think about it, like exercise is still stress on the body. I think it is just that, exercise is a stressor and your body's already put under some kind of stress from trying to detoxify the alcohol, and obviously insulin's working harder to clear the glucose and things like that. Yeah, I found it interesting.
We got asked this the other day actually on our Instagram, I think, didn't we, Jo? Someone was asking about they'd started taking regular, but then they had increased their physical exercise. And she was finding that, it
was making her constipated again.
Yeah.
I think any kind of change in workout, in my response to her, I think I said something like, you need to increase your hydration as well. Because obviously you've got that increased output, which is obviously then being taken away from the bowels, which is what causes our stool to be softened. So I'd say hydration is possibly a massive factor there.
And I think with hydration as well, what I have found is that you can think, I'm someone who drinks a lot of water, but I actually think how your body absorbs that water isn't necessarily doing what you need it to do, especially as someone who was super constipated.
Yeah, because that magnesium in the product works as that osmotic laxative, so it actually draws water into the bowel. But to your point, like not everybody's hydration needs are going to be exactly the same. And I think we've kind of hit this, 8 glasses of water, 2 to 3 liters is kind of like Bible. But also if you're in like a hot climate, if you're ill, if you are doing those kind of intense boot camp workouts and things like that, there's so many different factors of where someone might need more than the standard, 3 liters.
Super interesting. And it does make sense. So 2 more listener questions that kept coming up. One is, why can't I poo when I go on holiday?
Yeah, so this is a really important one to cover, because I would say it's probably one of our most frequently asked customer questions or comments. And the reason being is that the gut actually has a circadian rhythm of its own. So when we're flying, we're obviously going into different time zones and things like that. We're often eating plain food at not our normal kind of breakfast and dinner times. Our movement is often sort of halted because we're on a plane. Same with the air as well. We're often dehydrated. So all of those factors combined, it means that sometimes when we get there, or even a couple of days in, you might find that you're a little bit backed up or constipated. And I told the girls this tip, we were discussing it. I always say to try and have some yogurt from where you're flying to. So you've got those kind of natural probiotics from the place that you're visiting. Helps to kind of regulate things as well.
Yeah, that is
smart. Second listener question. And I've definitely wondered this before myself. If I poo really well every day, but only after coffee, is that okay?
Yes, and I would say that makes complete sense. And that's the case for a lot of people, purely because coffee actually releases a compound called gastrin, and that stimulates digestive enzymes, which actually speed up colonic activity. So it actually causes a motor almost inside the gut, which speeds up the process that food moves through the gut, essentially. Decaf as well has the same, releases that gastrin compound. So depending on whether it's caffeinated or decaf, you should still get that kind of increased motor activity going on.
And that's not a problem. It's not like a fake poo.
No, it's just, if you think about it, coffee is a stimulant. I always say this to people, and I have conversations all the time about, especially women's health, when is best to have coffee. And if you're stressed, it's a stimulant. So you're kind of, if you're anxious, you're almost speeding things up, and it works the same way for your gut as well, that kind of speeding up process.
I used to have it just when I woke up because I was dead to the world. But after food or with food, I find it better.
Yeah.
Don't have it with food.
Oh, shit, why not?
Just because it can actually inhibit iron absorption. I think we've spoken about this before. So tea and coffee contain polyphenols, which can hinder iron absorption. So if you're having if you're having breakfast, which doesn't, have much iron in, you're
I was about to
probably
say
fine.
toast with butter. Is that okay? That's what I'm about to have after this. I was like, I'm going to make myself some really buttery toast
That
and a
sounds
cup of
delicious.
coffee.
I'm sure that's fine. But obviously, if you're like having a really nutritious breakfast and you've got like, eggs, salmon, spinach, and you're not going to get like the full benefit from the meal. So I always say
Okay,
like
that's
space it by like
interesting.
an hour. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Laura. Can we talk a little bit about the mission of We Are Regular?
Well, I think it was basically our mission from the week we decided to do the product, and we started talking about it more. And it wasn't just the product side, although that is obviously incredible and life-changing for Holly, which is why we did it. But we were like, why does nobody talk about poo? It's actually really weird. And then you start looking at other brands and what they're doing, and it's maybe a lot of apothecary style bottles and digestion and gut health, which is amazing, and obviously opening up those conversations. But we're like, nobody's just kind of saying it how it is and talking about poo. And why is that? And I think a lot of it comes down to women, and like it's a very quiet corner of women's health, as we say. And we have been told that there's shame around poo, that there's secrecy, that it's unfeminine, which is the same situation with Celia not having to fart. If Joe had farted, that rugby player, no way would they still be talking about it 2 weeks later on national TV. Like, it was stupid and annoying. And every single person poos, and we really need to get over it. And so a mission of ours from the beginning, and I think we must have coined it in that week, Hall, was to break poo taboos. And we were hot on that from the start. Shame. So to be loud and proud in this kind of very quiet corner was always a mission of ours. And we went around the country, Leeds, Manchester and London. Yeah. We went to people in the street and we asked them, how often do they poo? We asked them a lot of questions around poo, and that was part of breaking poo taboos. And at first they'd be like, what? That's so weird. But then when they heard you speaking really openly and you about your experiences, they definitely opened up. And that is why communication is so powerful and conversation is so powerful. And I think that layers into obviously the education side of things. And as Laura's been saying, like, it's so important to check your poo. I have a family member who died of bowel cancer and were diagnosed in their 40s. And it is a really preventable disease if you can act quickly and you spot it quickly. So we need to know what we're looking for. And I've had piles loads of times, loads of bleeding. And I've been to the doctors for it. And I've had my little poo that you send off in your sample. I've had doctor's fingers up my bum. And if we're afraid of that, then that can have really dire consequences. So I think taking away the stigma, taking away the shame, hopefully pushes the education and the health side of things, but also just empowers women to have a voice. And the more we talk about it, the more empowered we are. So it's very much something that you see on our social media is Holly and I will push ourselves and push our stories in a way that we wouldn't have done 2 years ago when we started this brand. And I think within that chaos, hopefully pushes the message and in turn, I hope breaks taboos, because that is very much our mission.
Yeah, we very much knew we had to be the ones flying the flag for talking about poo, because we hope that over time it will become, and we're already seeing that, aren't we, in terms of the people that are sort of DMing us and saying, I never thought I'd be able to talk about it. When we're asked, how do you confidently talk about it? From my side, it's because I've had to spend 17 years talking to doctors about it. So trust me, when I sat down when I was 18 and I had my first conversation with the GP, I was mortified. And again, not rightly. 17 years later, here I am just telling the world about my poo, because you just become used to it, and we all need to get over it, because, and to be fair, it is women who are, vehemently shamed because it's not ladylike. Says who? Like, I'm sorry. Like, we literally all need to do this, okay? In my opinion, it's no different to breathing.
Like, because how many times have we all heard girls don't poo, do they?
Yes, we do.
By adults, not by school children. And actually, talking about school children, Andrex did a campaign last year, and it was about the impacts of girls at school feeling that they needed to hold it in and the long-term consequences of that. I remember being at school, they're horrible cubicles where you can hear someone splashing and someone weeing, There's definitely like, oh, she's gone for a poo. She took more than 2 minutes. And if a schoolgirl could turn around and be like, so That would be so empowering. And
Yeah.
so like we would love to go into schools. And I think as two 30-year-old women, we would really hope that we could empower from that age, because that's when the shame starts.
Yeah.
I spoke with an amazing lady yesterday in her 70s. She's like, I've started talking about it in some like ladies' lunches I go to. She was like, so refreshing. So hopefully changing the conversation will do that and stop girls and women in particular having those long-term consequences when it comes to constipation.
This needs to happen,
We
because
will
that
make
is
it happen.
it's so powerful, guys. Like, you literally could change the world one girl or one woman at a time, and one poo at a time. I mean, it's amazing.
You do really realize the generational changes. So there is a real this is not an overnight thing.
Yeah.
This is a
No.
mission that we are on for the foreseeable. We've got to show
100%.
that there's, nothing to be ashamed about.
And I think off the back of that, like sexual wellness in about the past 5 years, and the same with period care, and amazing brands in those spaces who have broken down barriers and started conversations. I think poo has been one of the kind of last taboos in women's health to be broken. We will really, really want to change that.
I agree with everything that you're saying. I've kind of started by talking about my periods and women's periods, and I still have my mum saying, oh, lots of friends are saying she's talking about lots of personal stuff, and it is personal, but also I just think it is normal. It's been a bit of a shift though, since planning this episode, to just do a couple of stories here and there where I talk about my bowel movements, because it's not something that I have traditionally put out on the internet. But the amazing thing is that a lot of people laugh. A lot of people, like, it's a funny thing innately, poo and farting.
Fine. Like, you can use humor to your advantage, and you should.
So true.
Humor breaks down boundaries, and you will have inspired so many people. Hopefully it's that domino effect.
I mean, preaching to the choir there, Jolie. If there is one thing that people take away from this episode about their poo, what would you guys like it to be?
I just want people to take the minute to think about their body, how they're living day to day, and how they're experiencing poo in their life. Don't know if we actually take a minute and think, am I operating at a way that it feels healthy, feels satisfying? I feel really strongly about the fact that I think there's a lot of women out there, a lot of people out there who think that they're operating at their best, but just maybe haven't given themselves or belief that there's something out there that can help. I've spoken to people since who have battled the same thing as I, and you say to them sort of, oh, we've got this product, not going to work. Won't work, because nothing's ever worked. And I just want to say it does. We just want everybody to feel their absolute best self, and something as integral as pooing regularly can have huge monumental impact on your well-being. And so just take that second to kind of ask yourself, like, are you happy? Take a look at We Are Regular, because I guarantee that you will feel so much better once you give it a go.
Jolie, what about you?
And absolutely echoing what Holly said, but also a really big thing for me is please check your poo. That's huge for me, and a message that we want to go far and wide. We've got some information on our website, it's so important, and your poo is a really big indicator for what is going on in your body. I think just checking your poo is very important to me.
Thanks. What about you, Laura?
Mine was probably the same as Jolie's. It's a marker of health, essentially, and we shouldn't be scared of it. It's something that you should be, routinely checking. And also, it's also a good marker of how stressed you are. If you notice, changes, that's a really good indicator that actually, whichever way, constipation or diarrhea, as long as it isn't severe and indicative of infection, it's actually a really good sign that, okay, we might be a little bit more stressed this week, or, something's going on, and it actually allows you to start that line of inquiry to kind of dig a bit deeper and start those questions. So I would say using it to take a pause from like the busyness and check in on yourself as well.
Poo better, live better. Yeah. That's our line.
Do better, live better. Thank you for having us. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
I think on behalf of everyone listening, everyone who might see a clip of this or listen or watch the whole thing, just thank you guys for bringing this conversation into the ether, because I do think it's vital.
Yeah, and if you did enjoy it, then do come and chat shit with us on our Instagram. We are at weare.regular on Instagram and also on TikTok. And yeah, slide into our DM and talk.
And sign up to our newsletter. Become a VIP, which is someone who signs up to our newsletter. And we actually had an amazing community event last night for our VIPs. And it was amazing. And there'll be more of that. So come join the fun and the chaos and the education.
I can confirm that the Instagram, I'm not a TikToker, sorry gals, but the Instagram is 10 out of 10. The VIP newsletter is also 10 out of 10. So definitely do those things.
And tell us, we want to know. Talk to like 2 people today about poo and DM us and tell us what happened.
I love that. Okay, that's everyone's challenge. Amazing. And Laura, what about you? Where can people find your work?
So you can find me on Instagram, Laura Jennings with a _, and the Nutri Method on Substack. I do a weekly newsletter where I kind of discuss trending topics that my clients are talking about and offer some kind of myth busting and nutrition tips. And also the Nutri Method is my website where you can fill out a contact form if you do want to work with me as well.
Love it. Thank you so much, guys. Go and talk about poo today. This is our plea to you. It's been such an interesting, such an enjoyable conversation. So you guys are great.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so
much for having us.
Such a
Bye.
pleasure. Bye, guys. Thank you.